Welcome to the Blessed Podcast. I'm your host, Raykel. This podcast is to help you experience being blessed that transcends a mere hashtag. Now, as I always do, let me give my disclaimer. I'm not an evangelist, prophet, pastor, or teacher. I'm a God-worshiping, Jesus-loving, New Thought Christian, Bible-believing person who just believes that God blesses us according to how we work His principles using our faith. Okay, so disclaimer done. We have been talking about my book Undefiled. We started, I guess, a month ago when we had Acacia Fullmore, and we did part one. This week, during Raytober, we're going to have part two with my friend Pamela Wilson. And she's a treat because not only am I talking about what I think, I have a licensed professional therapist to tell me what she knows about this situation. So let me just go back, and I'm broadcasting on WYTV7 Christian Broadcasters Network, a nonprofit charitable radio broadcast with a mission to empower, encourage, and educate. Donations are always welcome to further the mission. You can donate at www.wytv7.org. Your donations are definitely needed to further this mission. Okay, so Pamela, thank you for being on Blessed. And I have to tell everybody how I met you. So, Pamela, I was in Atlanta for a book conference, for book clubs. And Pamela stopped by my table. And of course, I told her about Undefiled. She said she had to read it. So she bought the book. She went in to one of the conferences, I guess keynote speakers or somebody that was doing a panel or whatever. And she said that she just started reading the book. She got up out of that auditorium and went up to her room so she could read the book in peace. And of course, she finished the book. Oh my gosh. So I had to have Pamela on because she is a true fan of Undefiled. Pamela, but before we talk about Undefiled, though, tell everybody about a little bit about you.
Well, my name is Pamela Wilson. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm originally from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but currently I reside in or near Richmond, Virginia. I actually love what I do. I'm a people person. And so when I met Raykel and I listened to her talk about the book, what sold me was her personality. And I always say, look, if you're going to sell me something, you got to sell me something. So her personality really stuck out, and we just started having this really good conversation. And I didn't really care anything about the book. I was just like, well, it's her personality. She's such a nice person. I'm going to purchase this book. And I purchased it after she told me a little bit about it, and I just could not put it down. We were only at the conference for 3 days, or 2.5 days, I guess. And I managed to read it in one day throughout the conference. I was taking it with me everywhere I went because I was just like, okay, I got to read it. I got to finish the rest of it. It wasn't so much that it was something that had not been written or that it had not been talked about. It was just the concept and the way she put it all together, adding in, the content of, how would you react if this happened to you? So it made it very interesting to me, having to deal with these type of situations on a daily basis. And I found it very, very delightful, and I found it very interesting. So it was a pleasure to meet her, and definitely a pleasure to read the book. And I'm so glad you invited me on the podcast.
Okay, you know what? You said something that I think anybody that is a writer or artist or singer, and this is about like marketing 101, people really don't buy your product. They buy you.
Yes.
And so like when people talk about their brand, you're the brand, I'm the brand, we're the brand, and then we have all these things that people go to, people read, people listen to because they love us.
Yep.
And I'm like, and that's something that was different. That's not what we talking about, but that was a plus for anybody out there who's an artist, who has a brand, so you have a business, so you can understand it's not the t-shirts, it's not the jeans, They're not doing, because they can get that from anybody. They're buying it from you because they like you. Yep. And they are dedicated to you. And so you have to really be mindful of that. Thanks for bringing that out.
You're welcome.
Okay, so in part 1 of Undefiled, we talked about, because we were talking to a young lady who stayed in a relationship because she had a child. And that's kind of what Liz did with her first relationship. Mm-hmm. She was waiting for this man to come back into her life because they had a child together. The relationship wasn't good, but people do that. And so she kind of, I don't want to say wasted her life, but she wasted a lot of time mm-hmm. with a man who wasn't right for her, who didn't have nothing, nothing good for her, and she didn't cut her losses and be like, thank you for my baby and keep it moving. So that was what our discussion. We talked about that aspect of Undefiled. But today, what I really wanted to talk to you about is the intimacy and here's a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think we make men fabricate palatable facts so we don't blow up? Which ultimately means, do we make men lie to us because we can't handle the truth?
The honest answer to that is no, because we can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. But from a therapeutic point of view and from a realistic point of view, if a man is interested in you and they are really, really vested in you and they want to keep you, they are liable to do just about anything to do that. Just as we as women do the very same thing. We may neglect to tell the man that we have, a child or till a later date. You've gone out on a man with the man 3 dates, and then on the 4th date he finds out, oh, you got a child or something like that. Do the same thing because you really want to get to the time and take the time to know the person. So I don't necessarily fault people for not putting all their business on Front Street right away. You want to get to know the person. Well, the way I look at it in therapy is, for women particularly, a woman will to gauge your commitment. And I call it carrying your load. A woman needs to know if you can carry her load. So in the same sense, a man needs to know if you have his back. So a woman will do things like, she'll tell you, and I'm just going to give you a scenario that I see a lot in my practice. A woman may tell you something about she's got a bill to pay. Mm-hmm. When you're first dating, you're getting to know the person. She said, oh, well, I'm doing this, but I can't go out to dinner because I have bills to pay. And I have this, I got that, I can't do it. You ask her out again. She says, no, because I got I have a child and I can't afford a babysitter. She's doing all these things to get you to know her and to understand if you're going to understand her predicament and her placement, her priorities. Does it matter to this man that I have a child? Is he going to say, oh, well, I'll help you get a babysitter for the night. I'll pay for the babysitter. Or is he going to say, can your mama watch her? Or I'll come over to the house. She's trying to figure out what his stance is and what his values are. The same thing with the man. If he doesn't tell you, certain things about him, he's trying to say, let me get to know her first. And then maybe I can tell. But it's not that we necessarily are trying to make each other do anything. It's just our own personal gauges. I need to know if I can talk to this person, if this person is of value to me, if this person can carry my load, or if this person can understand where I'm coming from as a man. We just need to know that person a little bit better before you start dumping everything on them. Because if you dump something on a person right as you meet them, I got 6 kids, I got 2 dogs, and all my bills are due, this is too much work for me. I don't want to deal with this.
Right. Okay, so you say, because like in the book, for the people, some people haven't read it, they may be listening to it, but then the people that have read it, they know that what he kept from her, he kept until the night before the wedding. And then really he only told her because he was going to wait after the wedding. He kind of had to. Somebody kind of made him tell it. So, like in that situation, if you were counseling Anthony and he was saying, when should I tell him? When should somebody drop a bomb that could? I mean, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that who you are, even if it's part of your past, but even our past still makes up who we are.
Absolutely.
And so when do we tell people when we're dating, I know we should not wait till we should not wait till the night before the wedding to tell somebody something like that. Or, what, should we ever tell if it really is in our past?
If it's really in your past and the person is of value to you, you got to take that opportunity to allow that person to make that choice for themselves. Because a person, once you take that away from them by not telling them, the next thing you tell them, they're going to be questioning your value, questioning your logic, questioning everything about you, your honesty, because you didn't tell me in the beginning. So this, not necessarily that he should have told her everything about his past, because to be honest, we never do. We never tell the whole. You got to get to know the person, but the person you're with should at least know the basics about you and know that I've had what would the word be? I've had a type of past where I've slept with a lot of different people, or I've had a colored past, or I've had a checkered past, or things like that. I've had some things about my past. There are things about my past that I don't want to talk about, but I want you to know that I have had, different types of relationships. And that onus is on the other person to say, okay, what do you mean by that? The other person has to be aware too, to ask the questions, because if I'm not mistaken in the book, he was trying to tell her at one point about his different relationships, and she was busy or things happened. And on the other end, she didn't necessarily want to tell him either about her relationship, her past relationship with her baby's father. So it's not that neither one of them wanted to not tell. It was just the timing of it. So before they got married, was it right for him to tell her the day before the wedding? I personally can't tell you what's right or wrong, because I'm not her, or I'm not that. They have to know each other well enough to know, okay, I know this person well enough to know that he was not trying to hurt me, or he was, I can speak from personal experience, because when I married my husband and I met in a very non-traditional way. We actually met on Match.com.
Oh.
My husband said to me, he met me he said October. We saw each other for the first time in November. And in December, before December, November, when I first met him, I actually told him he was going to marry me.
Oh.
And in December, he asked me to marry him.
Wait, 2 months after y'all?
Exactly. I met him I first saw him in October, in November, and I said, you're going to marry me. I actually went and picked out my wedding ring on our very first date. I brought back the card and told him, this is the ring that I want. Now, mind you, I said I just started talking to him in October. From the time I started talking to him, I had told him just about everything. And it was so much that my husband was like, wait, don't tell me anymore. I don't want to know all of that. He was like, we don't need to know all of that. Now, where I say I have similarities with this character is that my husband did not tell me that when we were dating that he was at the tail end of his divorce. He was not legally divorced yet. And it wasn't until after December, when he asked me to marry him, that I found out that he was still legally married. He was on the tail end of it, but he was still married. And I was like, wait a minute, partner. I was like, wait a minute. And once he told me the full story, then I understood why he was able to ask somebody else to marry him. Because I'm thinking, if you just get divorced, there's no way in the world you can say you love me. And he was like, I do love you, because I've been in a loveless marriage on paper for years. But I just stayed for my children. And I was like, okay, once I got all that information, I was like, okay, I can go through with this. So I understand this, and it was not just the fact, it wasn't that he kept anything from me. It was the makeup of this man. Everything else that this man had said that he would do for me, everything else that he had done for me, the way he presented himself, all of that was the truth. And that's the same with the character. When she needed him, he was there. When he said he was going to be somewhere, he was going to be somewhere. When he promised her something, he delivered. Yes. He showed his true self in his actions, not just in his words. So
Yes.
that to me is, you got to take the whole person, because even when you get in a relationship, you're not going to get just the person that presented themselves. Because when we get in these new relationships, we all show up and we can all do a good interview. We can all do that good interview process. But when you get in that relationship, that's when the real you comes out. You know, the fact that you belch at the kitchen table, the fact that you snore, you don't find those things out till later on in the relationship. But do you say, oh, wait a minute, he snores, I can't be with the man that snores? If that's your value, or if that's your level of love or relationship status, then okay, that may not be the person for you. But if you say, okay, he just snores, but everything else is perfect, then I can deal with that. And that's what this character, I think, came to the realization that this man loves me. And so what? I don't know. He don't know everybody I've ever slept with, or, you know, who he slept with in the past is irrelevant to who he's sleeping with in the future. If he plans on just sleeping with me and he can promise he's done with that, I don't have a problem with that. So I think that's where she was at.
You know, it's so funny. You said so much with that. I got so many questions. I'm sure people listen like, wait a minute, stop talking about Undefiled and start talking about. Okay, so we're going to get back to Undefiled, but I have got to know. So the whole internet dating, because I just turned 50 and I'm not married yet. And I don't know for sure if I want to be married, but I know for sure I want to date.
Yes.
And so for people over 50 that's listening, I'm going to do a show in February about dating over 50 and all that stuff. But just real quick, do you suggest that we open ourselves up to internet dating?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Because a person on the internet can present themselves just as good or as bad as a person you meet in person. And the thing of it is, with the internet dating, that was good for me was my time was valued. And if I didn't want to meet you, I didn't have to meet you. I didn't have to give out any information, or you weren't picking me up from my house, so you didn't know where I lived. You weren't, this is my value on it. I had an option when I got ready to do the internet dating. I decided, okay, there were some free ones, there were some cheap ones, and then there were some other ones. I chose to go with the one that had to pay where I had to pay, because I believed that I would get what I paid for. I believed that if somebody's willing to put forth a little bit of money to look for somebody, there's a little more. That's the value, the thing I took. And I dated on the internet for 2 years. I never had a bad date. I only had, well, I take that back. I only had one. And then it wasn't even a bad date for me. It was a bad date for him, because in the time that we were supposed to meet, my child got sick. And he had an attitude about it, because I called to cancel the date because he had an attitude about it. And he had told me who he was and where he worked. And so after he had an attitude about the date, and I'm not telling y'all to do this, it's just me.
What happened?
I showed up at his job one day. And I said, well, I just wanted you to, and when I showed up, I didn't just show up, I showed up and showed out. Meaning that I was dressed to impress.
You were looking good.
Yes. And I asked for him, and I saw him, and I said, listen, I said, this is who I am. I said, we were supposed to meet on a date, and I couldn't go, and you said, got a little testy about it. I said, but I just wanted to meet you in person and apologize. And once I apologized, I walked away. I turned around and said, I just wanted to apologize in person. Do you know that he was calling me back and asking me for dates? And oh, I'm so sorry, that was the biggest regret, and blah, blah. And I just was like, you're right, it is a big regret for you. And I left it alone. But because that right there showed me the content of his character. That if you can't make a sacrifice for a sick child.
Uh-oh, we got stuck. Okay.
That's the world. Really bad incident with the date. But I dated, like I said, for 2 years on the internet. I dated the gentleman. I dated one guy for like 2 months, and the other guy I dated the entirety of the time. But I really did enjoy it. I really found it to be an interesting way to meet new people, find out new interesting things. And I do tell people all the time, try it. What do you got to lose? Even if you never go out with the person, you've met somebody, you've got an opportunity to talk to somebody else different, and you never know where your blessing is going to come from. And that, so I really did. But I didn't tell y'all either. I didn't know what my husband looked like for the first month either. I did not know what he looked like. We did not exchange pictures.
Never exchanged pictures.
We didn't exchange pictures until after the first month. And then he kept saying, nope, there's something wrong with her. Send me. And when he finally started exchanging pictures, I would say, okay, I'm just getting ready to come from church. He would say something like, do you have a newspaper? Put the newspaper in front of you. Because it was like, there's got to be something wrong with you. There's another leg, an arm, something.
Oh my
but
goodness.
that was the only thing I found with the internet was the pictures. Like if they had the picture, it may be a picture from last year, or it might have been a picture from 6 months ago. So
right.
That was my only, but I wasn't doing that. So what happened was my husband had told me he had ran into that. And so that's why he was asking me, can I get an up-to-date picture right now? And now it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier now. You can just Skype and you can do all of that now. Right. But when I first started, we weren't doing that. That was 11 years ago.
Okay. And you guys been married for 11 years? Yes. Wow.
And happily married, because we don't argue or any of that. We don't have that. It's the communication piece. We talk about everything. We do talk about everything. There are times, like I said, with my husband now, where he will tell me, Pamela, I don't need to know all of that. A man doesn't want to know everything. And that's another thing that I think when we get back to the book, that's the difference between a man and a woman. A man does not want to know.
Right. We can get back to the book because you made a point. It was like you guys share the communication. And that's really what intimacy is to me. It's like one of my pastors said, into me see. It's like, so I need to communicate. I need to talk to you. I need to let you know my feelings, not just like the surface stuff, like what's kind of going down deep, because that's what makes you different from the other people outside of the house. So
exactly.
I can share with you even my past, even though it's behind me, but if I know that still made me who I am. Even if it's a fault that I'm working with, or it's things that trigger me, I might need to let you know, because you may do something that triggers something, and now I got an attitude, and you probably need to know why I got the attitude. But if we're not intimate, I haven't told you, shared these things with you, then it's a problem. So, and I think that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in the book. It's like and Liz, when he was telling her about himself, she was just quick to, put him in a box and not really listen to what he was saying when he was trying to be honest with her. And even in the earlier part of the book, he told his friend, well, I'm not telling her about that because, she a Black woman that go to church.
Exactly.
And I was like, and I wrote it, and then as I was writing it, I was just like, Dad, because I'm a Black woman that go to church. And I was like, so would people look at me like I wouldn't hear I couldn't hear, I can't be intimate with them and understand who they are because I'm judgmental?
And as Christians, most time we do tend to be this, because we take what other people say as the gospel, meaning like, and this is what I tell my couples. When you get married, it's not just you two. It's your mother and your father and his mother and his father that come into that relationship, because that's all you've seen, or that's what you know. And if it's not a mother and a father relationship, then it's somebody that you've seen in a relationship that you're emulating. And I also have to remind people, particularly Christians, that Mary had more than one child. She wasn't no virgin but one time. And I'm like, do you really think that she just had immaculate conception twice? She had to have sex and talk to Joseph about something for them to have the second child. And I get really frustrated with us as Christians, because we come in as women, particularly too. We'll come in, and after we have the children, particularly, we get this idea of leave it to beaver type mentality, where my body is just for feeding, and I should never do anything sexual with my husband or color outside the lines in my intimate relationship with my husband. And I'm just like, well, what was you doing when you got him? And how did you, do? And I really talk intimately with my couples because we get after we have children and we start doing house cleaning and we start going to PTO meetings and stuff, we start getting in line with other people's ideas about what your life as a couple should be. And I did a seminar at my church recently, and that's exactly what we talked about. And my pastor was like, Christians should be the ones swinging from the chandeliers because they should be the main ones with the, that they should be able to talk to each other about anything. And that's what I'm finding. I'm finding that people don't have those, and not just about sex, but they don't have intimate conversations about their wants, their needs, and their desires when they're in these relationships. And I'm thinking, well, what are you talking about?
Right.
What are you talking about if you can't tell your partner, don't touch me there, touch me here. I don't like this about you. I don't like that about you. My husband and I, like I said, I've been married for 11 years. And I told my husband when we first got married, I gave him 3 things. I said, I need a man who can walk in the church and it not burn down around him because he hasn't been in forever. I need a man that knows that my children are not expendable, that they are a package deal and they will be with me for the rest of my life. And I need a man who will not question me about my money. Those are the 3 things that I told him. And he was like, okay, that's not too much. And then I turned after we got married, I said, and by the way, I don't want a fat man. I said, you can't get fat on me. I said, I'm sorry. I said, what you present to me today is what I want for the rest of my life, unless one of you get sick or something.
You like
you
a man.
But those were the things that just meant, they may sound superficial, but I talked to him in advance about it. And he said, I'm so glad to hear you say that. He said, I'm so glad to hear you say that. He said, because I feel the same way. He said, what I got today is what I expect to keep years from now. And now in our family, it's a joke. My husband gets up every morning and he'll go to the gym and I'll say, honey, why are you going to the gym? He said, I'm trying to keep my wife.
Oh my goodness, you're so fun. Hey, Pamela, we are running out of time. You have been so much fun. Oh my gosh. And I know we didn't talk a lot about Undefiled, but I hope everybody that's listening, what we talked about, it was really important because that's really what Undefiled, even just because the bed is undefiled. And so that means that whatever you and your spouse do together, that you choose to do together alone in your bedroom, has nothing to do with the church or anybody else. And God does not see it dirty. And that's part of why I wrote Undefiled. And I hope everybody has read it because I'm ready to really talk about it. And which means the next show, I'm just going to have to blow out and it's going to have to be a caption that is spoiler alerts. But hey, Pamela, before we leave, how can people get in touch with you if they want your help?
I'm located in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and my address is 307 Lafayette Boulevard. That's in Fredericksburg, Virginia, 22401. Or you can reach me directly at telephone number 804-931-0660.
Thank you, Pamela. And I'm
Thank
sure
you.
In February when we talk about dating over 50 and things like that, I'm going to have you back so you can share more stories about internet dating. And then just your take on dating anyway. I think you might have to be my go-to guru or something like that. That's so funny. I love you so much. And thank you so much for loving me and my book and really telling everybody about it at that conference. Because
I'm still doing it.
People came up to me telling me that they saw you in the corner reading the book and they had to get the book because you made it look like it was so interesting.
Well, I'm still doing it. I have it here with me, and I'm still doing it. I actually have rented it out twice in my office.
Yeah, that's so cute.
So I really do. And happy belated birthday. I saw it on the internet. It was beautiful.
Thank you so much. And everybody out there, just remember what God can do for others. He can do the same thing for you. You be blessed. Make a decision every morning.
Thank you for listening to the Blessed Podcast with your host, Raykel.
Thank you.
Today's episode was brought to you by Tolson's Publishing. If you're ready to elevate your thoughts and exercise your faith to live an abundant life, then purchase a copy of Why Are Church Folk Poor today on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. Be blessed. Thank you for listening to the Blessed Podcast with your host, Raykel. Today's episode was brought to you by Tolson's Publishing. If you're ready to elevate your thoughts and exercise your faith to live an abundant life, then purchase a copy of Why Are Church Folk Poor today on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com. Be blessed.